Hey everybody, it's John, and in today's installment of our series of lessons learned from watching thousands of defensive encounters caught on video, I want to talk about and really start with some significant discussion about how we use videos and what they're good for and what they're not good for. Thanks to Wilderness Tactical Products for sponsoring today's video. Look for a link in the description for $5 off on the ankle first aid kit that I wear every day. So first of all, I have to say, I'm proud of the work that we do at Active Self-Protection, and I think that the videos that we put out every day help real life people defend themselves in their defensive encounter. We get those messages all the time. And I want to talk to you, if you're a watcher of the main channel of Active Self-Protection, as to why I put those videos out and what their value is, how you can use them, because truly they're not training. So I make a big differentiation between education and training. Training is where you put skills into practice and you ingrain skills to be able to use them. Education is where your knowledge increases, where your understanding increases, so that you can learn which things you need to do. And the narrated videos are education, not training. So I can't, in the narrated videos, teach you how to adequately draw and shoot a handgun. I can't teach you how to execute an arm bar. I can't teach you how to effectively use cover and concealment. That takes training. That takes you going and experiencing it for yourself, seeing it done, having it explained, demonstrated, and then you practicing it and ingraining that and internalizing it. That's training. But what it can show you is it can show you the principles that work again and again and again. And so that's really where the value is that we look at the narrated videos as education for the defensive training world for us to put into our training so that our training is more evidence-based. Now, what do the videos provide? The videos provide a single point of view. So there is a limitation here. It is a two-dimensional view of a three-dimensional problem. So it's far better than having nothing, for sure. But usually it's a third point of view. So the first person point of view is the person who is having the encounter happen to them. They're the good person, the victim in the encounter, or the intended victim. The second point of view is the attacker, the person who is instigating the violence. And the third point of view is a disinterested, uninvolved bystander. So usually the surveillance videos are all a third point of view. So from one perspective, you are looking at what happened to someone else. Now, we do get some first-person views as well. Those are badge cams. We see those in officer-involved incidents. And for those of us who are non-sworn, really some of the most significant value in the badge cams is not watching what cops do or learning cop procedures, but instead it's learning how violence comes at you in the first person. So having that third or first point of view is very important. Of course, there's limitations here too, right? So that third point of view can't tell you the depth sometimes. So, sometimes when action's happening across the screen, we can't see, gosh, did he endanger somebody else there? Did he flag himself with the gun? Because the angles won't quite tell us that. Or sometimes the way that the video is set, you may not be able to see some things. And I'll point that out from time to time. But it is a good singular view that gives us an objective measure of what happened in that moment. First person point of view as well, you have a limited field of view, whether that's here on the chest, if an officer pulls a gun out and, then that's going to put it right over the top of that. A lot of them are using parrots now, they're using a lapel-based camera, which is great, a little easier, but if they've got, something, I just saw one recently where a jacket flopped over the top of it, couldn't hardly see things. You'll even see some now that are on glasses, and that's great, except for we tend to kind of move our heads side to side when things are going crazy, and that can make it very difficult to see. So they have that third or first person point of view, and that's really valuable. The other part of this is that it is experience-based learning. So the neat part of this is the fact that those videos are not about a theory of what might happen. So it's not an expert standing there telling somebody to attack them. It's somebody who actually got attacked. And we see people who got attacked and are able to successfully defend themselves. And we see people who are attacked and aren't able to successfully defend themselves. So when we have a victory, we can say, okay, what worked for them in that moment? What was good there? Now we might try and say, gosh, we can't replicate that in the training environment. We can't replicate that in real life, or it was kind of lucky because those happen. But when they work, we can start looking, and when it works again and again and again, we start building up some evidence. And just the opposite as well. When it doesn't work for somebody, then we can see, gosh, when you do this thing, we see it again and again and again, then that can lead to negative outcomes. So that's why we call what we do evidence-based defensive training, because what we're trying to do with the narrated videos is we're trying to look and see what happens again and again. What are the patterns that we see happen all the time? What are the principles that underlie any given incident so that we can see what is best for all of us to do if we're going to have the best chance of surviving. And that's a helpful thing that comes to us from the narrated videos. Finally, there's an interesting bit here about the difference between a real experience and a virtual experience. And funny enough, your brain has a very difficult time telling the difference between a virtual experience and a real one that you actually went through. Now, I bet you're thinking, gosh, is that really the case? Well, there's more realistic experiences and less, but I'll guarantee you, if you're sitting there on your smartphone right now, have you ever had somebody send you a video of a roller coaster where it's a first-person point of view, and remember when you go over the top and it goes clink, 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 and then it goes, whoa, and it goes down over the top, and you're watching it on a screen, and you're sitting in a seat, and nothing's happening, and what happens? You get those butterflies in your stomach, and you go, whoa, or somebody jumps out of an airplane, and they have, a GoPro on, and he goes, whoo, and you go, whoa, and you're sitting in a chair, and yet you experience the emotion. Why? Because your brain has a hard time differentiating between a real experience and a virtual one. This was actually really brought home to me when I had this really cool opportunity with a couple of friends to sit in a flight simulator, and not like, one that's on your computer. I mean a real one that they actually qualify pilots in. And we got to take off, we got to land, and we're sitting in a box on the ground. Our instructor, who's a friend of mine, and I'm not going to rat him out, he says, dude, we're sitting in a box on the ground. Don't forget, we are sitting in a box on the ground. But man, we freaking pull it, push those throttles, and it starts going. I pull this thing back, and it goes up, and all my instruments are doing their thing. Totally real. Could never have told you if I didn't know that it was a virtual experience. And we even see this in limited places in video games and stuff like that, where what's going on in somebody's video game actually stresses them out. So your body has a hard time differentiating between an experience that actually happened to you and one that you're virtually experiencing as a bystander. And that's another value. Because when somebody actually has to go through that, if somebody is in a deadly force encounter, well then, number one, they're wagering their safety, their things, their life, that it's going to work, that they can do what they need to do. Well, that's risky, and nobody wants to be involved in that. I actually saw an advertisement for a guy who said, let me teach you how to fight. I've been in 600 fights, and I can show you how to fight. And my first thought was, God, why do I want to learn from somebody that's been in 600 fights, man? That guy doesn't know how to stay out of a fight, and he's clearly done something radically wrong, and I don't want to be involved in his life. So I don't want to have that kind of experience, but I can use other people's experiences and what happened to them and learn from it and internalize it myself without the danger to me that if and when it happens to me, I can take those, and if I've internalized those principles, use them. And we've actually seen this repeatedly. I get emails, I would say at least once a week, Facebook messages, those kind of things from people who say, John, you saved my life. And I go, whoa, time out. I didn't save your life. You saved your life. Tell me what happened. And if I helped you, great. If I gave you something that could help you in that moment, I'm so proud of that, so grateful for it. Tell me your story. And so many people have said, hey man, I had this defensive encounter, and dude, this thing went down, and I heard you in my ear saying, hey, and this is the point where, and I was like, no, I'm not going to be in John's video, and I got the heck out of there. Or things like, hey, you said to do this particular thing, and I heard that so many times, or I was in a transitional space, and whenever I am now, because of you, I'm aware, and so I saw it coming, and I was able to get behind cover and keep him from hurting me or whatever. So we see that all the time. That's education. And that's the value of the narrated videos. So my question for you out of today's is, have you ever had to put into place some of the things that you've learned, and have you gotten something out of that education that you actually had to use in a defensive encounter? I've had a few, and so I'm interested in your thoughts on that as well. So let me know what you've got. That's the value of the narrated videos. In videos from next week and beyond, we're going to actually start talking about what some of those principles are.